Fresco beverage. Happy hour and horsepower. I need to bring those back. I need to do more of those. More and more of those. How's everybody doing? Tonight it is, I don't know what time it is. I don't know why my thing is not showing there. I don't know why my time is not showing. We are early tonight, but I wanted to get everything in. Like I said, we wanted to get 2 live feeds in tonight. It is Black Friday, so special sale night. So go check out richholdnerperformance.com. We got a bunch of things on sale, turbos and intercoolers, and well, not intercoolers yet. Next week, although intercoolers should be in next week. We have air-to-water intercoolers, the ones that we use with our kit. Also arriving next week are going to be blowout valves. Right now we have wastegates, we have boost controllers. By the way, of all the things you spend your money on, a boost controller is the thing that adds the most horsepower for the least amount of money. If you turn the knob and add a pound of boost, there's nothing else that's going to give you power for whatever you paid for a boost controller. $20, $30, $40, $50 or whatever it is. When you could add hundreds of horsepower with a boost controller for whatever it costs, that's the best deal. But that assumes obviously that you already have a turbo and you already have things that are going on. So we got lots of stuff coming in. We have twin mirror image turbos for you twin turbo guys. A lot of times twins not necessary, pretty much just an aesthetic thing or a packaging thing, which, you know, and plus twin turbo, it just sounds better than single turbo. But we want to talk tonight about turbos again. We did a little bit of that in the previous live feed. Also, for the people that are here, because you're live feed people, I'm going to give away a cam tonight. I know I shouldn't, and I'll get yelled at. But I have a cam sitting down in the garage, probably one of the ones that I use. And so I'll be giving that away. So we'll do a little contest later on about that. The thumbnail that I have up is a 5-liter Ford, and it is what I called a tailgate turbo. And the reason that it's called a tailgate turbo is because I just built it basically on the tailgate of my truck. I just put the motor up there on a stand, and then we configured everything over it. This was over at a welding shop. And I said, okay, we need to do this, and we need to do this, and do this. This is before I do the welding now, usually at West Tech when I piece stuff together. But a lot of times they'll have stuff. Used to be that the muffler shop that I took it to was a single guy and his kids were helping him once in a while. But now they've kind of all but taken over, and they've really transformed the thing into like a serious, like legitimate, successful business. Before he was just like a little off the wall kind of thing, and which I loved. I loved going there. He was a great guy. I used to buy them lunch all the time. Would go in and he'd let me rummage through their takeoffs of the mufflers and the exhaust systems, because there's always in that stack of stuff, there's a lot of it is stainless because it's factory stuff, but there's all kinds of bends and tubes and Ys and stuff. I'm like, dude, we could totally make something out of that. So I'd go over there and scrounge through that stuff and use it to make things when we would weld things up for the dyno, because we would make kits, and not kits, but turbo assemblies so that we could run them on the engine dyno. And they weren't something that would fit anything else. Like this 5-liter is a perfect example. We ran flipped over shorty headers, or in this case, stock exhaust manifolds. Shorty headers would have ended in the same spot because they would design them to do that, to work with the factory H-pipe and the stock exhaust. And then we just basically what we did was just configure exhaust going from those into, in this case, a single turbo. You could also do it as twin turbos. Just merge the stuff together into a single turbo, and then have all the exhaust get to the turbo, mount the turbo so that the turbo then could be. There are a couple of considerations. One of them, can we get the exhaust out of the turbo, exiting the turbo? You know, in an engine compartment, it'd be important to get it past whatever else is there. Is there a brake booster, depending on what side it's on? Is there a power steering? Is there a frame rail? Is there, what is steering arms? Whatever all the things that you have to get it past, can you get it past that wherever you're going to mount the turbo? Also, can we get cold air into it in an engine compartment? Those are all considerations for the turbo. In fact, when I do stuff like that, and we look at things like that, we go, okay, the turbo should be right here. This is where we want the turbo. Just hold it as a point in space. We can get to the cold air into the fender well. We can get the exhaust. We could snake the exhaust down past that. And then if we were making a manifold, which we did, like in the case of the Tahoe, and the Silverado, we get all the stuff to that. in the case of doing it on the engine dyno, we just used exhaust manifolds and ran the exhaust and joined them together and put a turbo there, and then from the turbo an intercooler, and then going into the throttle body, and all that works out fine. But the way that we did it on the engine dyno is the same way that you do it out in the wild, out in the real world. You just have to get around different things. So the fabrication of it isn't any different. You have to find the right tubing size, I guess, and the right bends and things. But if you use 2-inch or 2.5 or 2.25 or 3-inch or whatever to run the exhaust, all that's fine. It works just fine. In fact, I answer more questions about, hey, would you use this On3 turbo kit or this whatever name turbo kit? Would you use this on there? I don't know, because I'm not concerned about the power output of any kind of exhaust manifolds feeding any kind of exhaust tubing as they merge into whatever T4, V-band, T3, T6, whatever. As long as the turbo is there and then you size the turbo for whatever power output you want, I don't worry about the stuff that's in front of that. People are worried, oh, is this going to restrict it? It's not going to. You, particularly with a 5-liter Ford, you're going to break the motor before you even worry about whether you're going to restrict that. And then the other thing, and this goes along with that. So you running, having a tubular header versus a cast exhaust manifold or the log style manifolds, or really almost anything, you'd have to be really hard pressed to make that restrictive, for especially if you're turboing a stock motor. You're starting with 250 or 300 horsepower, and then now you're going to double to 600. You're fine with whatever's there. So I don't worry about that part of it. But this carries over to the guys that, like a 5-liter Ford, there have been turbo kits for 5-liter Fords since the 80s, basically, probably before that. But for a guy that has something where there's no turbo kit designed for it, maybe not for their chassis or whatever, you just make it. It's not that hard. You don't have to get really elaborate. It doesn't have to be a tubular header. It doesn't have to be equal exhaust. It doesn't have to be any of that. They don't have to flow just right and expand and do it, or none of that's necessary. Just take the exhaust from whatever you have, an inline 6-cylinder, an inline 4-cylinder, a V6, a V8, a V10, whatever, get the exhaust to the turbo. Usually fitting the turbo in an engine bay and then fitting the other things is the hard part. Just having enough real estate to put all that in there. You don't have to science out we have to make the exhaust the exact same length. I got to mount the turbo in the middle right by the throttle body so that the turbo is exactly the same length and they feed equally into the turbo. No, you don't. That's not necessary at all. In fact, when I did the Pontiac turbo, the Pontiac 350 turbo, headers feeding a Y pipe, the Y pipe even went in at a 90-degree angle from one to the other. And I got a lot of, that's not going to work. No, it's going to work actually just excellently, because we weren't running a lot of boost and we weren't making a lot of power, and it didn't matter. We got all the exhaust merged together. And if you look at old factory Y pipes, they were kind of like that. They were terrible. But I know it'd be better as a Y, but we're not at a level where that sort of thing would cause a big problem. You're going to put a turbo on there and you're going to run, in this case, 7 or 8 pounds or whatever, and you're going to get a huge change in power. You're not at a point where, I lost 10 from that, or 15 or whatever. It doesn't matter. You gained 150. So that whatever percentage doesn't matter. You just turn it up another pound of boost, and it's not there anymore. And I only did that for ease of like fabricating. It would just go in a lot easier. I didn't have anything to make a Y from it. I didn't have a Y there to connect all that stuff together. So I'm just going in and out of 90. It's fine. This is a kit that's never going to be used again, because it's a Pontiac, and it's a Pontiac kit in that case that was used with whatever headers those were. So they only fit with that reversed. So it was fine. And that's the thing. When you're doing, if you have an AMC, or you have a Buick, or you have whatever, you have a Sprint 6 Pontiac, whatever you have, just get the exhaust and get that to the turbo. Now, if you're doing that and you have a 200 horsepower or 150 horsepower Sprint 6-cylinder Pontiac, and you want to make 1,000 horsepower, we got to talk about doing other things. But for the vast majority of people that would be watching this channel, for those people, just just get it there. Get all the exhaust there. Wrap it around the other side. If there's room on the other side, you don't have to mount, like if you have a non-crossflow head for whatever, like a 240Z, a Mercedes, or other kinds of non-crossflow heads, the 2.2 or 2.5 Dodge, you have a non-crossflow head and you got room on the other side of the motor, have the exhaust from the exhaust manifold go under the motor and come up on the other side. Put the turbo on the other side, and then route the discharge to an intercooler and then into the throttle body, wherever that is. You can get creative that way, but you just make it fit. Get all the exhaust to the turbo, make it fit, make it package well so that you can route, keep the exhaust and the heated exhaust away from stuff that doesn't like exhaust, stuff that will melt, any sort of plastic lines and stuff. Keep it away from all that, and then you'll obviously, you know, once you once you get the exhaust going to the turbo, then good things will happen. Then we do like a cheers for that. Frosty Cold beverage. And I've done that many times. We've done that. We built a single turbo for a big block Chevy like that, just like stock exhaust manifolds, because that's what we had. We had the flanges, you know, they're just a like a ball and socket kind of thing, 2-bolt deal. That we had those. Take the turbo, merge it into a Y pipe, have a single. We had that turbo come up like right in front of the motor, just because that's how we had to fit it on the engine dyno. And if you if you have to fit it in something, but every time we did this, and I have the intercooler up front and all that stuff, there are people walking, that's never going to fit in a car. No, it's not. But you could make it fit in a car. You just have to route things differently. People really just kind of want to complain. We're going to have a poll here. Very easy poll. Okay, should Richard give away an RHP cam tonight? Come on, people. If we hit 100% and it stays 100%, then I'll do it. If it doesn't go to 100%, then we won't do it. Let's see who ruins it for you guys. And then you guys, whoever voted no, you guys take that guy out behind the barn and show him that you should have a giveaway. Frosty Cold beverage. 383, what's going on? Howdy, David, Scottish. 916. I can always use another camshaft. Another camshaft? I need a cam. Good to see you guys. First snowstorm of the season started 4 hours ago. 8 to 15 inches forecast, depending on who you listen to. Where is that at, Crash? What state is that in? I know my credit card will be smoking when you get the turbo kits ready to sell. I know, I'm excited about that. Jimmy and I were talking about that today. He said, you realize when the kit is ready that that people are going to buy a lot of them. I said, well, that's kind of the idea, right? Hey, can you chat about running a turbo off one side? Yeah, we've done that. I've done that a couple of times now. There's videos up that talk about it, and it works. It's just a lot less responsive when you run it off of one side. It's an asymmetrical turbo, and Saab did that on their factory V6 turbo car. They did that as a production piece. I don't know I don't know what benefit that is, honestly. I mean, if you size the turbo small enough and you get the response rate that you want, I don't know if you get better. I don't know what you get better. I don't know if you get better mileage, or I just don't know what that would do. But it does work, and we not only did we do that, not only do we run it successfully off one side, and it did make boost, and it had a rising boost curve, kind of like a centrifugal, which is kind of what you'd expect as the exhaust energy comes up, starts making a little bit of boost, then more exhaust energy, then a little bit more boost, and a little bit more energy, and all that stuff. And so that's kind of what we expected. But we did a comparison between a log style Fowler manifold and then a turbo header, if you will, a tubular manifold. And that didn't work as well. That wasn't as responsive as the smaller log style manifold. Turn around, bolt it on. Hoping you can talk more about it. I want to make 1,000. Okay, that's easy. Just no problem. Your advice is great, but I was just looking for his backstory on it. Turbo kit, credit card. Yep. We got him, not to worry. I need a camshaft in my life. It will cure my depression. That is good. Little retail therapy, and free retail therapy is even better. No cam for you. That's right. Trying to figure out how to add a turbo to my sniper style EFI that doesn't have a boost reference. It's hard. It's hard because if you have the ability to tune it and you have a 1-bar map sensor, it's hard to tune the top bit. You can get it right, but the problem is you can't get it right at every boost level and zero boost at the top of that range. So we could get it right, like for a run on the dyno, if like, let's say we're making 8 pounds, it doesn't make any more than 8 pounds. We can tune that top cell of an NA map sensor for 8 pounds, but it will also go up there when there's not 8 pounds. It'll go up there at 1 pound or 2 pounds or 0 pounds. It'll go up there at 100 kPa, essentially wide open throttle NA. And that wants a whole bunch less fuel than it does at 8 pounds. So it's hard to get it to work for all of those. I need a cam for my first LS build. That's the kind of guy we want to have win a free cam. How efficiently will a 6-liter with a cam spool and 88 millimeter turbo, wanting to have fun street car without tons of loss? That's not the cam. That's not the turbo that I would pick on the 6-liter if you want. Was that one free or something? What pound injector for an NA build, 5.3 low buck truck and Trailblazer SS? If you're never going to run boost, you can get our 50 pounders for that. You can also use something that's slightly less than that if you can find some LS3 style injectors, but the 50s that we have are fairly inexpensive and they also fit the truck manifolds. What's the best manifold to use for a turbo? Usually the one that you have. The manifold you choose not for whether it's boost or not. You choose the manifold for the RPM range that you want. Have you ever built a downstream turbo where the turbo is at the back of the vehicle? A remote turbo? Yeah. I remember seeing kits being marketed and being easiest to install and almost universal. Yes, you can do. I have remote turbo testing up on the channel, and that does work. There are a couple of problems with that. One is getting the oiling not to the turbo. That's fairly easy, but getting the oiling from the turbo back into the motor. So you have to have some sort of scavenging pump or a reservoir or oilless turbos, which I don't recommend. So that's problematic. And then also the length of tubing that's required, both to the turbo, which is exhaust, which is not that big a deal. You'd have exhaust going back there anyway. And then you have the remainder of the exhaust going from the turbo to wherever they exit. But the cold side of the turbo, you have to have an inlet going into the turbo, which is pretty normal. But you also have to have the discharge side running all the way back up the motor. And no, that does not allow you not to have an intercooler. You should also have an intercooler. To make sure my fellow students respect their elders with a Truck Plus cam. There you go. Are they just going to respect the chop? Is that what the deal is? Nasty Z28, what's going on? My bro picked up a 65 Nova, 235 6-cylinder, 3 on the tree. Nice. Thinking of slapping a turbo on it. I think the old banger would hold 250 to 300 horsepower. I don't know what it makes now. Like, what is that? That motor's probably a 235 probably was only rated at like 115 or 120 horsepower or something. Best map for a 2006 Silverado SS for running boost. What do you mean best map? A map sensor? Are you talking about which map sensor to use? The map sensor you choose would be based on how much boost you want and then what ECU you're running. Swing of luck would be good. I'm cool with the biggest 6-liter LQ9 cam you got. The Truck Plus is the biggest cam that we offer. But we can get all of the BTR cams. So if you want something really big, we can get that for you too. Intercoolers. That's right. Respect the chop. Get some Spintech mufflers. The map sensor that you pick is going to be based on how much boost you want to run. So a 2-bar map sensor is 14.7 pounds. A 3-bar is 29 pounds. So how much, depends on how much you want to run. And then also when you do the map sensor, the scaling also is affected. So since you have the same number of cells, let's say on whatever, if we pick a Fast or Holly or Haltech or whatever, you have a certain number of scales on it. So if you divide those up into multiple bars of boost, you have less resolution. So if you're only running 14 pounds, just get a 2-bar map sensor. Everyone wants to make 1,000 horsepower, and then until I price a turbo. Yeah, 1,000 horsepower transmission is not cheap. My 6-year spool is an 85, 88, pretty fast. Hooker headers, T6 flange, 2 1/4 pipes. Yeah, I definitely don't recommend a T6. Near. So ours is a 7391 and an 8275. So it depends on what number you're giving me there. Get a G42 from Richard. Yeah, a G42 I think would be better than that turbo. So it would be way better than a T6 version of that. Take the LS to the chop shop. Our RPM trans is 6,000. I just bought a triple disc Circle D converter for Black Friday. The only part that I'm missing from my build is a transmission. Transmissions are not cheap. Transmissions are more than the motor is. You can build 1,000 horsepower for less money than you could transmission 1,000 horsepower for. Might order the RHP wastegate, and then I need the controller you have on there as well for my Ranger bed mount versus a turbo running Holley X-Max. You can a Holley, I think. I don't know about the X-Max. The other ones, the Dominator certainly will control a boost controller if you get the 3-port controller. But a manual one works good for all of them, and it doesn't care about what ECU you have. The gate has a spring in it, so you run a reference line to the bottom of the gate, you will get spring pressure. You will get whatever the boost pressure is. 7 pounds, I think, is what those gates are. And so you'll get that. If you want to change that, now you can only go more, you can't go less. But if you want to add boost to that, then you need a controller, just a bleed valve. Getting a G42 from Richard for sure. Going to school now to get a job that pays enough to afford all the Richard parts. That's why we like that. See, higher education is very important. My wife made new drinks for Thanksgiving, and they're awesome. And a G42 is a lot of turbo. That's 4-digit stuff. So you can do some serious tire spinning or acceleration if you get it hooked up. No need for an electronic one. No, you don't have to have an electronic boost controller. They're nice and they work really well. And they work better than a manual one does, but I've run lots of stuff. In fact, all of our Bonneville stuff was run with a manual controller. None of it had electronic controllers on it. Fresco Beverages and Turbo Goodness and Billety Goodness. We have our Billet boost blocks, which I'm trying to think if I ran one. I don't think I ran one at West Tech yet. Have you tested a Precision 7880? I don't think I have. We've run a couple of Precisions. I've run a smaller one than that. And I thought that the other one that I ran was a 76 millimeter. And it worked good. I like all the Precision stuff. They do really well. Precision makes good stuff. It's just that it's a good bit more money than the stuff that we have. And that's where you got to decide, like, what do you want? Vincent, there's no dumb questions. If I do a manual gate and an electronic controller, that can be done without using the electric gate. No, an electronic controller won't control this manual controller. You need a 3-port deal, and then it will control that. And then you run the lines off of that to the top and bottom of the gate, and then to your reference line. And then what happens is the computer cycles that, and it controls the boost. but you won't use a manual controller for that. You'll just use that electronic version. Working on a 3800, nice. Is it a 60 L67? What version of the 3800 is it? Is there a downside to ball bearing turbos? No, ball bearing turbos generally cost more, but I don't think there's a downside to them. Not in terms of, I mean, they're really good. If you watch the stuff that Robert did at Force Performance, and I reference this all the time because he brought up a really good point. A lot of guys talk about ball bearing turbos for, oh, it's a ball bearing turbo. It's going to be a lot more responsive. It's not going to be. That's not why you're doing that. What it does do, though, and the important point that he brought up, and it's something that they did they were testing in road race cars, which is very, very cool, is that the ball bearing turbo would last and survive through like low oil feed situations where a journal bearing will not. And so they would smoke turbos because in high G cornering and stuff, the thing would momentarily have an oil starvation problem. And the ball bearing would just keep going, and then it got oil again. It was all fine. But a journal bearing, you'd usually smoke the bearing. I think that was a problem more with that car not having a good oiling system. But it did show the differences between those two turbos. In drag race applications or street applications, that's not normally an issue. You're not normally running it under high lateral loads and stuff where oiling might become a problem. That's not an issue, but that's an important point, and usually something that guys don't talk about. Gen 4 LQ4, nice. Fast 92, ported 243s, 216 cam, billet 80 millimeter. Okay, T56. At what point is it worth going to a T6? I'm reworking the onside. You're not at a point where you need to have a T6 turbo. Are you maxing that turbo out? I doubt you are with that combination. The decision: spend enough money to do it right, or spend way more money to do it 2% better, or to do it 2 or 3 times. you amortize that over a longer period. But again, for most guys, like they talk about, oh, well, buy once, cry once. But I don't think that applies to getting a Garrett or a BorgWarner or a Precision turbo versus getting some other turbos like the ones that we have. I don't think that for the vast majority of people that want the power levels that we're talking about, I don't think you get anything by doing that. I would like to see a back-to-back comparison of longevity of those things and see if a $2,000 or $3,000 turbo would last any longer than the turbos that we have. I would bet that they don't. And if they did, I would bet that it wouldn't be 8 or 10 times as long as the ones that we have last. So I don't think I just don't think it's there. I think, like we talked about before, in a lot of the really good turbos, Garrett makes an amazing turbos. BorgWarner also, Precision, they make great stuff. And if you're racing in a class where you have to have the last little bit of power out of the size turbo that you're running, then you got to get those. But for a guy that's putting together a junkyard LS, I don't think that that's the market for that. Planning to make as much power as I can with that turbo. Plenty of fuel system to go with it. Okay, then I wouldn't get a T6 version of that turbo. I would just get a bigger turbo. If you want to make 1200, then I would get a turbo that would support 1200 or 1500 or whatever your number is, and not just get a T6 version of that turbo that you're already close to maxing out. L36, unfortunately, on the 3800, swapping to an M90. That's still good. There's nothing wrong with that. I thought you said on 1,000 horsepower, 6-liter, a divided T6 was okay. No. I mean, you can run that. It will certainly work. But on 1,000 horsepower, I wouldn't have a T6. I mean, I wouldn't have a T6. I would have a V-band. I would have our G42 V-band. Will 75 millimeter T6 work okay on a 425 horse 454? Yeah. Again, on a 425 horse 454, depending on how much power you're trying to get, I wouldn't go with a T6. You're not talking about the really an excessively large displacement, and you're also not talking about making a lot of power. Zero doubt in longevity capability of your turbos. I don't believe you'd sell junk. No, we're not going to. I mean, Jimmy's has been on for a long time now, and the ones that we have that we've run a bunch are good. I just don't think. I mean, I'd want to see like, okay, let's run them sustained or however you would do some sort of longevity test. Let's run them like that, because my guess is they're going to do really well. Experience in difference of rocker shafts like the BTR kits, that 500 versus Wilkes versus Crowder or 2000. I've never seen anybody do any kind of real serious destruction or longevity test for any of those things. In the world that I work in, none of that's necessary. You can do trunnion upgrades, but even if you just buy regular stock rockers, it's an upgrade. The trunnion upgrades are not necessary, other than from the standpoint that your trunnions on a junkyard motor has 200,000 or 300,000 miles on them. And there's not an infinite number of cycles that you can ask a rocker to do. So it will wear, and they will not be great. Usually what happens with stock rockers is the trunnions don't wear out as much as you'll get some tip wear, but usually what you get is push rod wear, and then you get rocker cup wear, and that gets bad. So that's a good reason to replace them. Have you ever played with a DIY turbojet engine? I'm not sure what that is. Can't waste to boost a 6-liter. Yeah, those are good. The biggest problem I see is guys will get hung up on one specific piece and miss all the little details or holding them back unless the data shows a problem. Yeah, I agree, Bill. Guys do get wrapped up, and they get wrapped up in little esoteric things. My pet peeve, other than people asking my thoughts on stuff, which I got over, is people asking what is the best, and then whatever the next thing is. It could be what's the best cam, turbo cam. What is the best intake? What are the best cylinder heads? What is the best displacement? What is the best? There is not that. That's not a thing. It's not a thing for anything. It's not a thing for cams. It's not a thing for heads. It's not a thing for turbos. It's not a thing for intercoolers. It's not a thing for anything. People just they think that this thing is up here, that, oh, I just need to get that. He just needs to tell me what that is. And that way I can tell people I got the best one. That's not a thing. You're not going to be able to get that because that doesn't exist. Any experience with external high flow fuel pumps? Yes. The fuel pump that we run at Westech, that they run at Westech, is a brushless air motive pump, and it works really well. I've also run external feed pumps that are fed by an internal in-tank pump, and those work fine as long as you have constant fuel flow to it and it doesn't starve, and you have a big enough inlet feeding because a gravity fed pump has to have a big inlet feeding it, much more so than if it's fed by another pressurized source. So you got to make sure that you do that. Will a 6-liter need larger injectors to utilize a truck plus cam? Yes, and unless it was already a high horsepower 6-liter to start out with. I don't know what size injectors you have on that 6-liter, but a lot of them were very small. Do you have to ring gap for 10 pounds of boost? Yes, you should ring gap for any amount, because ring gap is not related to a boost level. Ring gap is related to a temperature level, which can be related to boost. But if you were to go out and try to run the Silver State and keep your foot in it for half an hour, like I did in the Mustang, and you don't have enough ring gap, even at 7 pounds, you're going to blow the motor up. So it's all about ring temperature and then the rings touching. That doesn't just happen at some boost level. A lot of times you can get away with a lot of boost. You can get away with 15 or 20 pounds for a very short period of time. Or sometimes you can't. Sometimes it breaks right away. You just don't know, because you don't know what the gap is. What turbo would you recommend to get 600 horsepower from a 383 street engine? Well, our GTX 3584 RS is on sale right now. I would get the 121 housing, and that would be fine for a 383, depending on, I'm sure, your NA power output. I mean, is it a really mild 383? Because a 383 might be near 500 NA anyways. I've been measuring, and I think I'll have to use the G35. The 3-inch exhaust will just barely sneak down in between the frame and exhaust. The G35 is a good turbo. It was on your website. And maybe sneak a 3-inch past and then go to 3.5 after that. It will be better. It won't be ideal, but it will be better than running a 3-inch all the way. So on your website, looking at the GTX 3584, it looks like you have 3 different AR options. We only have 2 that I know of. The other one is probably a T4 because we have T4 versions of that and not just V-bands. All the dyno pictures are the same. What AR was used for the dyno runs? We have used both an 82 or an 83 and a 121 on the dyno on the videos that we've done. So we've tested all of them. Guys make jet engines out of turbos, very loud. I started making one on a wood stove. Oh, I've seen the wood stove things. Those are awesome. I've never tried that, but it's very, very cool. Getting ready to reassemble my boost ready LM7. Been asking questions about. Just wanted to say thanks. Good luck. LM7s are awesome. That was one of the Big Bang motors. Iron block 5.3 with ring gap in it. There's nothing but goodness there. Doing 30 thousandths of ring gap for 14 pounds. Yeah, that's more than enough. You're good. What cam would you recommend for a 408, 3,800 pounds, 373, 5-speed manual, port 799, Z85, sheer fabrication, high ram, street strip, NA for now, and boosted later, Pro Charge or turbo? What sort of power do you want to make? And is it more of a daily driver, or is it? I mean, it's got a lot of good stuff on it. How much do I benefit from Recport? Well, if you're going to turbo it, you don't worry about that. If it's going to be NA, if you have ported 799s and they're professionally ported 799s, I wouldn't switch to a Recport head. RHP 1050 also has the same dyno as the RHP 800. The G35 would have been chassis dyno tested and not engine dyno. Well, I take that back. I need to go back and look. On our first go around with all the turbos, we may have run that one. But and that G35 turbo is a different turbo than the 3584 is. So it's not just a change in AR, it's a completely different turbo. My 383 is a 233, 241. Oh, that's a big cam. 510 Edelbrock E200s, dual plane air gap. Yeah, I'm thinking you're going to be more than 600 horsepower because you're already a lot of the way there. It's definitely at least high 500. I mean, high 400s, maybe low 500s out of a 383. And so you're talking about only adding 100 horsepower, let's say, with a turbo. You're going to be adding more like 150 or 200. Making Rice Krispies and Fruity Pebbles. There you go. Would it hurt to gap the rings? Nope. You should, if you have the motor apart, you should do that now. It will do nothing to power. It's fine. Cocoa Krispies last night. That's all good. It's all good in the hood. So we have somebody that said, no, we shouldn't do a giveaway. People disgust me. You were the worst type of rebel scum. So how many people do we have? We got 76. Near. Okay. A little arrow, a little zippy tail. That hashtag cam giveaway. Ban that guy. I know. Well, at 90%, obviously, more than one person has done that. How many people do we have? 63 votes. Yeah, more than one person has done that. So they're awful, awful people. Just throwing it out there like a cam for my Intimidator. Maybe the wrong picture got uploaded or something. All 3 pages show G35 on the dyno with 800 horsepower peak. Yeah, I'll have to look and see if I don't know why that would be on there for the G42. The G35 is about 100 horsepower in terms of potential. It's 100 horsepower more than the 3584. So if you're wanting more horsepower, that would be the one to get. $454, $218, $226, $110 plus 6 versus $231. The turbo is not going to care about either one of those cams. The 231 cam is gonna have less drivability. You know, it'll be softer down low a little bit. It'll make more peak power, but neither one of those is going to stop you from doing whatever you want to do with the turbo. About to order the 800, the GTX 3584. That's a good turbo for a 4.8 or a 5.3 or 6.0 or whatever for the lower power levels. That's a good one. And then I would get the 121 housing, but we have the tighter one, and then also the T4 for that 3584. And then I think we have twin 3582s also. My 6-liter has a sloppy stage 2 of unknown origin, so I'm going to take it out and get another cam. I know for sure it's the real deal. If it's working, I just would run it. I mean, as long as it's not one of these terrible ones from sources other than Elgin, I would definitely get the Elgin stuff. Get the real deal sloppy ones. I don't think they're very expensive. Ghosting cars. The 218, 226 is fine for the turbo. You can make as much power as you want with the turbo. A 231 is also going to work on a 454. It'll be a little bit cammy, and I don't know what manifold you have on there. I'd like to be around 500 wheel NA and boost it to 800 to 1,000. Forge bottom end, 10 after 1, 408 Chevy truck. Cam recommendation. 500 plus wheel NA. So that's going to be a big cam if you want to do that, because that's 600 horsepower. So 600 horsepower 408 is going to be like it's going to be bigger than a red hot cam. It's going to be more like that. Well, maybe not that big. And I wouldn't pick that cam. See, I wouldn't want both of those things. I wouldn't want the cam that will make 500 plus NA and then also run boost on it. I would pick a cam that's smaller than that, and then I would just turn the boost up to make the 1,000 horsepower, because it'll be much better driver. Because the cam you're going to want is going to be 230 to somewhere between 230 and 240 degrees of duration at 50 on the intake. And that's not the cam that I would want in a thing that I'm driving around. Is this going to be a driver at all? Because it's getting ready to start his 41 wheelies gasser. Nice. Stroker 427, blowing 426. Nice. 2 950s. Can't wait to hear it. What size blower is on there, Ben? I have an LY6 with a Chopacabra cam. Nice. 72 C10. Manual trans 373. What do you think about upgrading to the Truck Plus cam for boost in power and maybe gaining some low-end traction? Yeah, it'll be a little bit softer down low up to 5,000 and then be better above that. I honestly don't know that I would make that change for that cam. I don't know how easy a cam swap is for you. I mean, obviously, we'd love to sell you a cam, but I'm not here just to do that. I'm here to the same thing that I've been here for years. It's not to sell you stuff, but to give you the right information. And I myself wouldn't do that swap. It will do what you're asking, but I wouldn't do that swap. I wouldn't do a cam swap just for that. I don't think you're going to gain enough. You're going to gain like 15 horsepower on the top or so, somewhere near there. And you're going to lose some down low. And if you want to lose some down low, that's a very rare ask in this world. Usually people want more down low. But it will do that. But I don't think that I'd do that for that combination. Was thinking something like this, a TSP, Chop Monster 240, 252, 600. Cool. Yeah, I've never tested that cam. The one I was thinking of is the BTR LS3 Stage 4 cam for you to make that NA power, but that's not the cam that I would recommend if you're going to put a turbo on it. I mean, it will still work. It is a turbo cam, but it's not what I would pick for a turbo. I would want something way milder than that, and then just that way it'll have more low speed power. You'll have more response. It will just be better to drive around. eBay special cam. It's not up and running yet, so I don't want to put the motor and find out that it's not good. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. So a big advantage to the GT3582 instead of a 34. It seems like less turbo. Well, we just have twins for that. That's the 3582 is really a symmetrical twin setup. Not one that I would put as a single on anything. I mean, not on anything LS related. I might do that for something smaller, but not on an LS. Oh, an 871 Ben. That's very cool for the blower, for the blown Hemi. Drive around town for fun and some drift events with 8th Mile. Yeah, that's not, again, it's up to you what kind of how you like the drivability of things. If I was going to turbo it, I always go smaller on the cam. Drag Van, what's up, man? I need them. Okay, we need to do a cam giveaway. You guys ready? You guys got your pencils out? Well, you don't need pencils. Just you have your keyboards. That's all you need. Okay, so we have about 75, 76 people here now. So we're all going to pick a number between 1 and 100 and go. Everybody pick a number. I have a number already written down before I got here. So we had one. There. And so we'll go a couple of minutes and then see what happens here. There. Nobody's picking 7s. Yeah, you got to pick 7. 7's the number. It's not the number. What would you say the power limit be on a 78, 75 cast wheel turbine? I know the magic material change that maxes power. Just get that way. A 70, like a Gen 1 78, 75 is like an 850 horsepower turbo kind of thing, I think. Matthew throwing the 7 out there. And you can only say one number, because if you say 2, you're automatically disqualified. You don't get to say a whole bunch of numbers. Okay, so if I go back and I scroll back and you've put 2 up there and you pick the winning number, guess what? You lose. Too bad, so sad. Darren. I forgot my number. Well, that's we can just scroll back and take a look at it. 91% are saying, should Richard give away a cam tonight? Yes, he should. He definitely should. Useless 204, 218. Is that a good cam for a turbo? Every cam is a good cam for a turbo. You don't pick the cam for whether it's a turbo or not. You pick the cam for what you want the cam to do NA. How do you want it to idle? Do you want to use it with a stock converter? Do you want chop? Do you want good fuel mileage? You know, what are you trying to make the cam do? And then you just add boost on top of that. There's not a every cam is a turbo cam. So you just pick the cam for what you want the cam to do, and then you add boost on top of that. There. 83 people. Oh, we got a bunch more people that just chimed in, I guess, because they probably heard free cam or something. That's what happens. Scrolling back, I'm seeing. We got 2 people that picked the same number. I got more than probably 2, I would guess. There. Yeah, we do. We got people that have picked multiple numbers. It's funny, the people that picked the same number did it like right after each other too. It's like you guys were talking. There. So I guess if no one picks the number in, we'll go 2 more minutes, let's say. So we'll go to 51. If no one picks a number, then we'll just get the closest one. I put another number. Someone got the same one as mine. You guys are all good. On a small block Mopar, the problem with getting a large camshaft is the cylinder head. Max lift is 510 on the Edelbrock, and Pro Comp aluminum head's 490 on the J head, unless you do a lot of work to them. Do you need a longer valve? I mean, what is the problem? Is it retainer to seal? What's the issue? News team assemble. 33. We're doing Prices Right rules. Oh, so you can't go over the closest without going over. I remember Freiberger did that to me. He did too. Because when we're doing dyno testing, like we like to, obviously we all think that we're dyno experts or whatever. And so, and we did, and all dyno guys seem to do this. So we did this at Steve Morris. And so wherever we go, it seems to be the thing. So you try to guess how much power it's going to make, or if we just made a change, how much power is it going to gain, or what's the new power output going to be. And so I came in and guessed the number. I'm like, I already know what it's going to make. It's going to make this. And then so Freiberger like picked one number. I forgot which. He went one number below or one number above or whatever, just so that he could get closer. Remember back in the day, guys would talk about clipping the turbine wheels, that thing. Yeah, they're trying to improve the flow rate by spinning the wheel faster, I guess. But I don't know that. I can tell you that I clipped the exhaust wheel on one of my turbos, on one of my Turbonetics turbos on the Honda when we were running it at the carb shop. I didn't do it on purpose. We did it only because when I put the turbo, it's a T4 turbo, mounted T4 turbo on a T4 manifold, I put a gasket there, and the gasket overhung the opening of both the turbo a little bit, the turbo and the manifold. And so what happened is all the hot exhaust like took pieces of that. I'm thinking it was copper or something. No, it had to have been stainless steel, but it edged all that stuff off. It just took the part that was overhanging, just took all that off and sent through the turbo. And then what that did was clip the wheel. I'm like, why is this thing now not making hardly any boost? I mean, it would eventually make boost at a really high, like, at a higher engine speed and power output that we'd finally get the boost. Come on. I'm like, why is this doing this? And I took the turbo off and I'm like, we need to look at this. I took the manifold, or I just took the downpipe off of it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's not there. I'm like, why is the turbine wheel destroyed? And then when we took the turbo off, like, oh yeah, that shouldn't be like that. Just popped in, Herbie, you're giving away free cam. See, Dan knows what the deal is. Yeah, Dan, you're supposed to guess a number between 1 and 100. They said spring bind unless you use a different rocker arm style. Yeah, but you could change that though. You can change the spring that you use, so you can change the coil bind issue. You could change retainer to seal clearance with various things. You could machine the seal down. You can change the retainer and that inner height. Basically, you could do some things to fix that, I think. I used a hone on my old housing, but never ran it. Slightly bigger. Zona rotor has good stuff, which flows better round or square ports. I got a bet on this. A round or square port for what? What head are you talking about? A rectangle port versus a oval port or roval port. The roval is better of a given dimension because the corners of a rectangle don't flow. So it depends on how you're measuring the port, though. Back in the Stone Age, guys would clip wheels, but now you have turbos that have enough range to work. Yeah. Choosing the number pi. 103 Nick Williams engine went on low power. Is that common on those throttle bodies? What do you mean? The throttle body is shutting? That sounds like a countermeasure tune kind of issue. Is it a drive-by-wire thing? I don't know that that's throttle body related unless there's something, an overspring situation or something. Vegas is in the house. What's going on? I used to live out in Henderson. Pi is 3.1415, blah, 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 all the way down. That's what that meant by doing a lot of work on heads, but with the stock style of spring and retainer, they're limited. Is the stock spring a beehive spring? C6 or 7-liter or C7 with a supercharged 6.2. I'm not a fan of C7s. Like, I don't like the way they look. I also don't like the way C8s look. I do like the way C6s look. I don't think that I would get a 7-liter one. They are cool. I would rather have a 6.2 version of that I would then build and maybe have boost. But there's in all of those, there's no bad choice there for the guys that like that kind of car. Do you have any experience with BTR shaft rockers? Yeah, we've run those when I was at BTR. I don't ever remember running any here on the dyno. We did run some of their, maybe we did run shaft rockers here. I mean, we just bolted them down and they worked. We don't have any, I don't have a bunch of experience running them on the street or anything. I agree on the C6 versus the 7 and 8. Yeah, there just doesn't, the look isn't right for me. I saw a C6 the other day on the freeway and I'm like, oh yeah, that's really nice. I like that. No, but that's not what I had to go with to clear the rocker arm with the retainer. Okay. Yeah, because the problem is sometimes when the retainer gets big, it'll hit on the inner edge of the rocker, depending on, I mean, sometimes they have that half moon slot there, but we had to do this a bunch of times on big block Chevys and small block Ford and small block Chevys and all kinds of stuff. We have to go in with a grinder and clearance the inside of that. Beehive springs cure a lot of that problem. Just got my low buck truck cam. When are you going to offer tuning on your site? That should be coming up pretty soon. Pi is not 3. Could you imagine a rocket scientist said 3 is good enough? He would not be a steely-eyed missile man, that's for sure. I'm going to leave a number 1. That's better than a number 2. Okay, so far, okay, we've gone past. Nobody picked the number. I'm going to go back and make sure. Nobody picked it that I see. I'm scrolling. Keep them doggies scrolling. Rawhide. Near. Scrolling. I'm still scrolling. I'm still seeing more numbers. Let's see here. Oh, we do have a winner. We actually do. Scottish 63 was the number. You win the camshaft. So send me an email. I'll put my email down. I hadn't seen that. And so I went back through it and I'm like, oh, it is there. Way to go. Okay, so I put my email, Scottish. Please send me a thing as long as you didn't put more than one number down. I honestly don't feel like going back and looking through all that. So send me an email and then we'll get you a cam out. Near. I ordered a Truck Plus cam and springs yesterday. Way to go. I'm sure the 7s and 8s run awesome, but the C6 has plenty of car. I got the right curves. Yeah, I like the way that it looks. And the technology that's coming in modern cars is just tremendous. I mean, I liked watching the Car Wow thing, I think is the name of it, where they do the drag race against all sorts of stuff. And just like, he's just like the guy that's doing that is just like the guys from Top Gear, where they hate American cars for some reason. Everything that is good is European and they always win. You know, they had a Dodge Demon on there that I was watching and it went 11s. I'm like, dude, a Demon doesn't run 11s. You need to be able to drive better. Oh, this is on an unprepped surface. That's great, but you're a long ways away from what that car can run. But at any rate, though, I watch all their stuff and it's always good. But the sophistication is in things like, you know, traction control and all that stuff and getting all that stuff to hook up. The Dodge is not a turbo Porsche. It's not at that level. And Porsches always seem to do very well in those things. Yep. Congratulations. Could you change my mind if I said that the Coyote is the best 5-liter engine? What I can tell you is you get to believe whatever motor is the best is the best. You get to decide that. That's not a universal thing. Everybody is not going to agree with that. But luckily for you, everybody doesn't have to agree with that. Just you. Just you have to think that. Very cool to give a cam away. Yep. Well, it's Black Friday. You got to go to richardholderperformance.com. You got to take a look at all the turbos. Got to take a look at the cams, the springs, lifters, all that stuff. We got good LS7 lifters. Got a bunch of cams in now and turbos and all kinds of stuff. So, and I look back, and Jimmy and I talk about this, and because you forget when you're doing this, over the period of a year and a half, or 2 years, whatever. You forget. You're like, last year we had like 3 things available on the store. So it's way, way different than it is now. And so it's growing, and the sales are growing, and all that stuff is good. Yeah, Michael, somebody said no. I don't know what the deal is. There's always somebody to ruin it. The Coyote. The Coyote. Getting some new orders in. According to my Draggy, my van almost identical to what my van ran on a prep track and a virgin asphalt street. Track is 753/8, 561. Nice. What's something I could do to improve my Trailblazer SS with an iron block swap? What does it have in it now? But if it's an LS, cam, springs, injectors, tune, obviously boost. How many cams have you sold? I don't know what the number is. Similar to that, the tech in motorcycles has gone crazy. Yeah, and motorcycle technology seems to be lead car technology. At least the motor, the specific outputs certainly do, because they're running a lot more RPM, which is cool. Can't wait to go there and find a turbo kit, turbo manifolds, or intercoolers. Yeah, the intercoolers, I think, and the blow-off valves, I think, will go up there next week. Turbo kits aren't going to be there for a little bit, because we're still waiting on the castings for the turbo manifold. But I want to, hopefully we'll have something that we can run at, LS Fest or LS Fest West, or one of those things that we could get it on somebody's car that can go fast. BTR Stage 4 V2 Turbo Cam looks like it would be a great fit for my 408. Thanks for the recommendation. Appreciate your commitment to educating. Yep, that's fine. And you can order that through us, because we're a BTR dealer, or you can go directly to BTR. It doesn't matter to us. It's all good either way. We love the guys at BTR. Brian and those guys over there do good stuff. What liter per hour fuel pump for a 5.3 with boost, looking for 500 wheel horsepower? Our Hellcat pump works good, which is a 530. A single 535 would be enough for that. We've done a lot of 500 wheel stuff, level stuff, when we're doing our testing with the Tahoe. And that's what we have in there. We have a single 535, and we've run it on pump gas and E85. And they both work just fine. There's enough for either one of those. If you're really getting after it, you're going to have to find some sort of dual pump deal to make that work. And we'll look into that as we get more into that, as we get into that higher power level. I don't want to go down that road. I don't want to go down into the 1,000 to 1,500 horsepower stuff. Drag van, your thing, weight transfer is good. That's good. Getting the thing hooked up. And that's what, when you look at those acceleration tests the Car Wow guys do, it's almost always at the line. Somebody wins at the line. Very rarely does another car run them down. I like when they also do, and this is a cool thing about their thing that I watch, is they'll do acceleration tests. Sometimes they'll do 1/8 mile, and they'll do 1/4 mile or 1/2 mile. And sometimes they do a rolling thing. Sometimes they do a mile or whatever. And when they do a roll on in addition to an acceleration test, that's good, because acceleration test is almost always traction. So whoever has traction the best, like a Tesla Plaid, just trounces everybody when it leaves, and is so far out that it's hard for even a car that makes a lot more power than that to ever run them down. But when you do the roll on stuff, then you go, oh yeah, that's that's power or aero or whatever thing that you're talking about. They do a roll on from 50, let's say. And then you go, okay, yeah, now the power is down. In some cases, they can't put all the power down even from 50, but at least you could get more of it down. Ever looking at doing a mirror 35R? Going to be looking for a set of 35Rs for a truck build. What's a 35R? We have twin 3584s. We have twin G35s. We have twin 3582s. So I don't know which one of those wouldn't satisfy what you're trying to do. 340 liter per hour plus a boost pump. Yeah, that will take you pretty far. It will pull the front tires up 2 to 3 inches for 5 to 8 feet. Nice. Got some daylight there. I like that. That's good stuff. It'll hop a Coke can. Can you team 2 Hellcat pumps online to do big horsepower and 85? You can. One of the problems with the Hellcat pumps is they're big down at the base, down at the entry, the base, not the bottom of the pump where it draws all the fuel in. And they're big down there, so it's hard to get them side by side and get them to fit like in past the opening of a stock tank. And so some of the other pumps that are the same OD all the way down and don't get big at the bottom, some of those pumps package better. So you might have to go with 2, I don't know, 420 pumps or something like that and put those in. The internet on a Tesla Cybertruck loan is more than my fuel budget for a 2500. Had a 255 and a T-Rex booster inline pump, 60-pound injectors for the Vortec. Yeah, no, we did that a lot. I don't even know if I had a 255. I might have had a 155 feeding the, we had a T-Rex. I tested those, but then I ended up doing a Bosch pump, which I think is a 928 or a 930 turbo pump. That's what I had on my Vortec deal, and that worked good. But a boosted pump works good too. I mean, you can increase the flow rate by a lot by going to, first Jim had 17 volt ones, and then they stepped up to 20 volt ones. And that changes the fuel flow a lot. And it's a lot easier to install that than it is to change the fuel pumps on a lot of these cars. So they did that on a lot of stuff where they just wanted to bolt the blower on, which he would take it up to a lot of power, and then they would end up hurting something. I'm like, you need to put ring cap in that. No, we don't need that. Just blower only. I'm like, you don't want to do just blower only. He said, because you're not hurting it because the blower's doing anything. You're hurting it because it doesn't have a ring gap. That's the problem. And so, but they would, when they would do that, they would do usually a boosted pump, and a lot of times that would be enough. And then they would get to the point where because those blowers could support a lot of power. So they'd end up having to do a pump also. But a pump and a boosted pump could take them a long ways. It'd make a lot of power. On that note, it is time to go. Make sure, Scottish, send me your information. Send it to my email so then we can get you a camshaft out. And congratulations. I will see you guys all tomorrow. I thought I clicked that. I did click that.